Hello, everyone. I'm Sam.
I'm Kaitlyn.
And I'm Mo.
And this is Team Get Ovary It.
We're an all-female team participating in the greatest motoring adventure on the planet, the Mongol Rally.
We'll be driving 10,000 miles across mountains, deserts, and unknown terrain.
And along the way, we hope to spread our feminist and environmental ideals.
Join us here as we share our stories, thoughts, and interviews as we get ready for the Mongol Rally 2021.
Don't you mean 2022?
Shit! Hello!
Welcome back.
I know our usual formula is to post follow-up interviews or at least an episode whose content is related to that of the previous episode, but today we're going to do something that is a little off topic, though still on brand.
The reason why we're changing things up this month is because we're in the midst of setting up something really exciting, but we didn't want to skip a whole month of content, so here we are. So while the tension builds for the next month's episode, please enjoy. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Please enjoy as we talk about one of my favorite hobbies and something that we've all tried our hands at one point or another, gardening.
Canadian Thanksgiving actually just passed, which, among other things, people give thanks for a bountiful harvest of farms and gardens. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a rural village where everyone had a spacious lawn, and most people had both a front flower garden and a side or backyard vegetable garden. I remember my mom planting a garden every summer and getting yelled at for pulling out carrots and eating them without permission. Let me tell you, those carrots were hands down the most delicious ones I've ever eaten in my life.
Nice.
Gardens are a great source, of cheap and fresh food and an enjoyable hobby, but that's not all of their benefits. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the various benefits of gardening, and we'll discuss gardening techniques with our resident expert, Mo.
Well, I don't know if I would call myself an expert, but I'll happily share what I know about gardening with our listeners. I hope it'll be interesting and useful. Like Kaitlyn has already mentioned, planting your own garden is a great source of fresh and cheap vegetables. Depending on where you live, the cost of veggies at a supermarket fluctuates with the seasons and availability. I couldn't believe how high my grocery bill was when I lived in Korea. It was through the roof. I didn't buy fruit for a year because it was so expensive.
Yeah, girl.
If I had a yard and hadn't lived in a high rise shoe closet, I absolutely would have grown my own veggies to cut down on costs. And I tried, but I had no sunlight in my apartment, so my plants all died.
That's sad.
I gave it the college try, though.
That's what's important. Yes, I have like a little ivy plant now, and it's hanging in there, but it's like 80% dead.
Oh, poor baby.
It's really hard to grow things here.
Well, luckily with ivy plants, they don't require as much sunlight as most other plants, so they're
That's
indirect
true.
is fine.
Yeah. No, it's like whatever's still alive is doing well. Yes, and that's especially true during lockdowns caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. It's
Mhm.
much better now, I think, that people are getting vaccinated and things are opening up again. But last summer was another story, however.
Mhm.
Many people lost their jobs and were struggling for ways to pay their rent and buy groceries. I remember seeing many posts about people planting their own food to save money. And I think like baking bread at home,
Mhm.
instead of buying was also popular. Um, Also, baking your own bread and growing your own food saves you a trip to the grocery store, which limiting the exposure and even saving money on gas.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
another great benefit of gardening is how it can reduce stress in a number of ways, some of which may come as a surprise. So, watching something you create take shape and produce results can increase confidence, happiness, and reduce anxiety. While gardening, your mind is focused on the task at hand, so all other worries and strife fall to the wayside for a while and give you the headspace you need for a much needed break.
Hmm.
And not only that, but tilling, mixing, sowing, and
Hmm.
weeding are excellent exercise, and your brain will release endorphins as you go about these tasks. And honestly, baking your own bread as well. Sorry, I just have to mention this because I did bake my own bread last summer. But it also cuts down on how many preservatives you're putting into your body and chemicals because you're
Mm.
using just flour, yeast, and water usually.
Yeah. Bread recipes are very, very simple. But
Hmm.
it's a really good workout for like your forearms whenever you're kneading the
Yes,
bread. Yeah,
my
over and
forearms got
over.
super buff. Ugh.
That's good. Yeah, and not only that, but while gardening, this is really interesting. You're also being exposed to some helpful bacteria that live in the soil. Not all
Mm-hmm.
bacteria is harmful to our bodies, and a good number of them can actually improve our health. Mycobacterium vaccae, or M. vaccae for short, is a helpful bacteria that lives in the soil. While studying the effects of this bacteria on rats in 2017, a team from Colorado University Boulder discovered that an injection of heat killed M. vaccae caused more serotonin to be released in rats' brains, which reduced their anxiety.
Mm.
Oh. It also seemed to reduce inflammation in their bodies by 50%. Oh.
Oh.
Now, we're not saying that you should go outside and eat fistfuls of soil, but it
No.
won't hurt you to get a little dirty.
It's even good for kids. Lots of studies have shown that if children grow up in too clean environments, their immune systems won't develop as they should. Keep in mind that allergies are fickle things and they might develop later down the line. I was always outside in the dirt as a kid, and I recently found out that I'm allergic to all kinds of grasses and tree pollen. Though
Oh,
maybe
no.
not as severely as if I hadn't had that exposure. Who knows? Either way, it's a good reason to get kids involved in gardening, and yeah.
Yeah, same with me too. I'm also allergic to a lot of grasses and grains and stuff. This summer has been really hard on me. I've just been like every day with the nasal spray.
Yeah.
Ugh.
For me, it's
But
more of like I get hives on my arms if I like roll in
oh,
the grass or have it touch me.
oh, yeah, I just
Yeah,
can't
it's
breathe
weird.
through my nose. It's a little uncomfortable, but it's not too bad. Yikes. Anyway, plus, being outdoors makes it so you get your much needed dose of vitamin D. Vitamin D helps you absorb calcium and build and maintain strong bones. It's also been found that a lack of vitamin D in children increases the stiffness of arterial walls and causes high
Mm.
blood pressure. Just another reason to encourage children to help out in the garden. And overall, having a sufficient amount of vitamin D present in the body can reduce your risk of cancer, help fight off infections, and reduce inflammation.
However, don't forget to wear that sunscreen once you're outside. You definitely don't want to get
But you
the
know
me-
what?
the skin cancer, but
Oh yeah. Of course, like don't get sunburned. But you know what? You know what though? It's kind of interesting. If you're wearing SPF over SPF 30,
hmm
then even if you are going outside like every day, you're still not getting enough vitamin D. So you should really
oh
kind
yeah.
of like without sunscreen or like with a like SPF 15 or something, go outside for at
hmm
least 20 minutes just to like kind of get enough of that vitamin D. It's
Oh
kind of
yeah, no,
interesting.
I spend the first 30 minutes that I'm outdoors with the zero sunscreen, and then I go
Yeah.
inside, cool down for a minute, rub
Mm.
on the sunscreen, lather up, and then I go back outside after letting it soak in for like 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah,
That's
that's
my
a good
water
idea.
break. Um,
Smart.
and of course, if you're growing and eating your own vegetables, you're probably not consuming harmful pesticides or herbicides that might be present in foods found in grocery stores. Not
Mm.
only that, but I've heard that when you pick a vegetable or fruit, the nutrients it contains break down over time. Therefore, to get the maximum amount of nutrients from what you're eating, you have to eat it immediately after being picked. Veggies and
Mhm.
fruits that have been sitting in grocery stores for a while are simply not as nutritious as something that was freshly picked,
Yeah.
which is why you should buy from your local food stalls, like your food fresh vegetable farmers markets. There we go. That's the word.
Yeah,
Like food
usually like
markets.
smaller, yeah, smaller, how can I say, smaller vendors, smaller stores,
hmm
usually will have fresher foods than the big kind of box store, grocery store places. And also frozen, because once if it's picked and then it's frozen, then it sort of like keeps the nutrients a little bit better. I know that the taste isn't really that good.
Eh.
But
It's,
yeah, that's
it's
also
either the
kind of
taste or the
recommended.
consistency that's off once it's flash frozen.
Yeah,
But
frozen's kind of weird. But
yeah,
anyway, if you're concerned about nutrients, that's the way to go.
heck yeah.
If you don't have your own garden. So,
Hmm.
I yeah, definitely didn't know all that stuff when I gardened when I was younger. I think at the time I was just mostly interested in eating everything um, th- than I was in other stuff. But no matter the person, I'm sure there's something about gardening that they will find appealing or enjoyable. So now, Mo, I know you grew quite an impressive garden this past summer. Would you care to take us and our listeners on a kind of step by step journey through the process? I guess the first question should be, what was your initial reason for starting your garden?
So What many listeners may not know is that I was in South Korea with you guys until March of 2020.
Hmm.
And then I flew back to the States right as the pandemic kind of caused a massive shutdown in the US. And because I had moved back right as all of that was happening, there weren't a lot of jobs available. And a lot of people who had jobs were losing them. So
Mm.
I guess the main driving force was just for me to have something to do in the months
Mm.
while I waited for the country to loosen restrictions enough for the people to, start job hunting again, and for me to actually, have a chance at having interviews and potentially getting a employment of some kind.
Mm.
Also, my dad's a bit of a prepper, which I didn't really know
Okay.
about, like those doomsday preppers.
Yeah.
He's kind of into that stuff, but like to a lesser extent. So like he's not
Yeah.
super crazy. He doesn't have like a bunker built in the backyard or anything.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with trying to, how can I say, like, ensure your survival, because like who
Yeah,
knows
no, of
what's
course
gonna
not.
happen in the future.
Right. No,
Mm.
but so basically in I was doing it just kind of to give myself something to do, and then my dad saw me doing that and he's like, we should get uh half of a pig, and we should go to the local butcher or the local farmers, and also see if we can like buy a cow, and when they're ready for butchering, then we just get all the meat from that. And I was just like, okay. So basically my family bought wholesale meat, and my dad was like, can you add this, 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 this? And he just started listing off a thing of vegetables. He was like, can you add all this to your garden? And I was like, sure, I guess. Let me go find seeds for these things that you want now in my garden that was only going to be a small little plot, but is now like this giant thing. So
Cool.
initially started off as a hobby, like me just like doing something to do something and not necessarily like anticipating like having to actually grow food for the family. To I actually ended up growing a bunch of food for our family, and like we made so much tomato sauce, so much spaghetti
Ooh.
sauce, and other stuff
Yeah.
for the year.
Well, that's awesome. And I bet
Yeah.
it's delicious too.
Oh yeah, God, my dad makes the best tomatoes. My mom and my dad make like really good tomato sauce for like spaghettis, and it's so good now that since we're using like fresh tomatoes off the vine, and
Mm.
like they didn't have to sit for very long. Like we let them ripen for like 2 or 3 days, and then we just like flash boil them, peel them, and then reduce it, make them into a sauce, reduce it down, and like can it. And it's delicious. If I could send you a can, I would.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I might see
Yeah,
if
I
I can
don't think
sneak
I
it
don't know
into
if
your
that would
care
fly very
package.
well.
I
Yeah.
might see if I can sneak it into your care package. I don't know. I don't know what we'll have to do. I'll probably have to like bubble wrap it like 10 times in like a plastic bag or two,
Mm. Yeah, it
just in
might be
case
all
it
right.
breaks.
Your parents recently bought that house, so there you must have had to
Hmm.
prepare the soil, I guess, for planting. So how did you do that? Because I know when I was a kid, because it depends on your like soil quality or what kind of soil
Yeah.
that you have. So like in my village growing up, we have very it's either called loamy sand or sandy loam. We only have like two. Yeah, so it's very sandy and it has a lot of clay in it. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, so you have to kind of mix it with a lot of peat
Yep.
and fertilizers and stuff. So how about you? Did you have to do any of that kind of stuff?
Well, I was really impressed with the fact that you're just like, I'm eating these carrots straight out of the garden and they're delicious, because I'm just like, carrots usually are super acidic, and like I can only have like a couple of them because they my cheeks always turn up because of it. It's like, but
Oh.
yeah, no. So like the reason I mentioned that is because last year we grew carrots in old garden beds that had been used for like flowers and things. And
Mm.
like we didn't really do a whole lot of prep of the soil the first year that I did the garden beyond just like tilling it up a little bit and like
Okay.
loosening the dirt,
Hmm.
which was a mistake because our carrots were like not even like 2 inches
Oh,
long, because
yeah.
because the area I live in is basically hard packed clay,
Mm.
and that's
Yeah.
like 90% of the soil around the area I'm in. It's just straight up clay. Like
Yeah.
it's very dense. Water sits on top a lot, and it doesn't have good filtration or anything like that. So this last year, what we ended up doing was, I know I needed to add some sand to build in some like filtration, like break it up a little bit so that the water can like seep through and filter out.
Hmm.
And then we also needed to add compost and other not raw material, but like natural material, I guess, to help kind of break down in the soil and add nutrients back into the soil without having to buy chemicals to put in directly.
Mm.
Because I know like the farmers in the area, they'll sometimes add like this white substance, which I think is just like a really high concentrated nitrogen um,
Oh,
fertilizer,
okay.
because the cornfields need it to be able to recoup over the course of like a year or two where they sit fallow,
Yeah, right,
so that when they replant the corn on top, they're not just like killing the dirt basically.
right.
To avoid all that, I basically worked in some shredded newspaper paper that I had from work that I wasn't using anymore, and
Hmm.
then a lot of compost that we bought from a nearby cow farm,
Cool.
and and a few other things, and it worked really well, but it was kind of like a pain in the butt to try and like till the soil multiple times, because this year it was like extra rainy, and so like there were
Mm.
like when we were trying to till everything under and like get everything mixed up so that the soil was nice and even all across the patch, it was just
Hmm.
like we'd till it one day, but like, okay, we'll let it sit, and then we'll till it again tomorrow, and then like tomorrow it would rain, and we're just like, no.
Ugh,
Had to wait a week
yeah.
for it to dry out and then try again.
But anyway, in the end, you got planted though. So, what
Yeah.
kinds of plants did you grow? Because you mentioned like you were just going to start off with a few plants, and then your dad sort of asked you to add more and more stuff. And then, which ones were the easiest to grow, and which were the most difficult?
Ooh. I ended up doing a very long list of plants. Like, I think we ended up having like 40 varieties of plants that we put in the garden
Hmm.
for this year. And like six of those were different tomato type tomato plants.
Okay, okay.
So we had like
Hence
six
the
tomato plants.
sauces. That makes sense.
Yes. And then I have we ended up growing I think 7 or 8 varieties of pepper, because my dad loves his spice,
Hmm.
and he actually ended up making this pickled jelly with like blueberries, and it's actually pretty delicious. Like it's warm, but it's not like slap you in the face hot, like burn your mouth
Oh,
spicy. But it's just like
interesting.
a nice pleasant warmness to like whatever piece of toast or bagel you're eating with like the jelly flavor. So it's like, blueberries, and then there's like a little heat at the back, and you're just like, all right, it's
Interesting.
pretty good. But yeah, so I grew those kinds of peppers, and I tried my hand at growing corn.
Hmm.
It did not go well.
Oh,
We got the I think they're called mealy bugs. So they're like these like little worms that like eat the inside of the husk. So they eat all the corn that grows in the husk, and then like basically it just becomes like completely unusable.
uh,
So that was really unfortunate. I'm just like, and I'm gonna research this over the fall and winter, how to prevent that for next year without having to like use a really strong pesticide, because I don't want to go that route.
mm,
And we grew okra, collard greens, like 3 different types of lettuce, zucchinis, squashes, a couple of kinds of onions. We were gonna do pumpkins, and I forgot to plant them. So
mm.
we have 4 varieties of pickle of like cucumbers, and I grew watermelons this year, which was really good.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
they have.
watermelons turned out well, or
Yeah, no, the watermelons turned out really good. They were like a nice deep red color, like more like a purpley red than like an actual red
oh,
red.
interesting.
The only downside was that they were just chock full of seeds. Like
Um,
you literally like have to just squish the watermelon in your mouth without like chewing it, and then like spit
okay.
out all of the seeds, because it's like you got like a mouthful of seed basically every time you took like bite of the watermelon. But
Oh, yeah.
it was super sweet and delicious, so it was like totally worth it.
Nice, but a lot. It's kind of funny because like if you look at there are a couple of old like Renaissance era paintings that actually have watermelon in it, and if you look at like the
Hmm.
paintings, the watermelons are chock full of seeds.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah, because
watermelons that I grew look like those watermelons.
so it's more natural, I guess.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they're your what they call heirloom seeds. So they're more your
Okay.
traditional plants that hadn't been genetically modified or crossbred yet.
Mm.
So it's like 3 or 4 steps back from what we currently see in the supermarkets today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All
Yeah,
right.
so that was really cool, and actually surprisingly the watermelons were I think the easiest plant I grew,
Okay.
whereas the corn was definitely the hardest.
Yeah.
Just because I had the infestation problem. And then the other thing that I struggled to grow was my herbs this year, because I
Okay.
moved them from like a shadier spot to like a sunnier spot, and I think I'll
Oh,
have to put them back in the shady spot next year because they did not do well.
yeah. They don't like being moved and stuff. Well, that's
That too.
interesting. Oh, okay. And then, how did you feel while you were gardening? Did you feel your troubles melting away as you worked?
Most days I just felt really tired and hot while I was gardening because it was just like gardening in the middle of the summertime and going out there and like having to weed was kind of annoying and sometimes frustrating just because like the garden got like way out of control while I was on vacation and
Mm.
by the time I got back it was so overgrown with weeds that there was like no saving it. So I was just like, well, poop.
Mm.
That sucks. But before that, it definitely helped me take out a lot of my frustrations with like work or with family issues or anything else that was like causing me stress at the time. Like if I was like, okay, I'm really mad about something, but I don't want to scream and I don't want to yell at anybody and I don't want to punch anything. So I'm gonna go take this hoe outside and like,
Just beat the
you
dirt.
know, beat the dirt instead and like rip up all the weeds and throw them away. And
Nice.
honestly, it's really fun watching the plants grow from seeds that you started in your house in February to
Mm.
this big bushy plant that's producing fruit and you're just like, yes. Like it's very satisfying.
Yeah,
All the
that
hard
does.
work, all the frustration is so worth it once you get to, reap the fruits of your labor.
Oh, literally.
Yeah, literally. Everybody uses it figuratively, but not me.
Yeah. Well, that does sound really nice. And then, so what were the final results? So I guess your garden is pretty much finished now, right?
Yeah, so it's the eggplant and the okra are still producing, and so is the huckleberry plant and the
Mhm.
blackberry plant, which I didn't think was going to produce anything at all,
Mm.
has done really, really well and has a bunch of buds on it right now. So I don't know if it's actually going to produce any berries this late in the season, but
Mm.
it may not. But
Mhm. That'll come back
yeah, so
next year, though, right?
yeah, it's a annual thing, so it'll come back, and I'm actually gonna take some of the stalks next year when they come back and
Mhm.
move them to the other side of the cage that I have for them because I created like this
Okay.
half dome cage,
Ooh.
and so they're basically blackberry plants are like these weeds that
Mm.
just take over, and so the best way to like keep them under control is to have them climb a cage or climb a fence, and then anything that's
Mm.
not on the cage or the fence you trim off, and you're like, die, don't
Oh,
come back. Otherwise, they'll take over the whole space, and then
yeah,
you'll
yeah,
just end up
yeah.
with this giant blue blackberry patch. You're like, it's not what I wanted, but all right, I
Yeah.
guess.
Can't complain.
But yeah,
Cool.
so I'm still getting my eggplant every couple of weeks. I actually just picked like 4 or 5 eggplants, and they're like
Nice.
12, 16 inches long, and they're like these
Oh,
deep
big.
purple, and they're super. Well, they're not like your traditional eggplant. They're not the big round ones, the bulbous ones. They're
Uh-huh.
more skinny and narrow.
Okay.
But they're
Oh,
still really long, and I'm just like, yay! I can chop that up, throw it in a stir fry, and have me some eggplant.
yeah, eggplant's really tasty too.
It is.
Eggplant
I
chips.
I didn't think I liked eggplant, and then like South Korea has turned me on to so many vegetables that I didn't like. Like Americans traditionally don't like a lot of vegetables, like Brussels sprouts, acorn squash,
Mm.
eggplant, broccoli,
Yeah.
onions. And then I moved to South Korea, and I was just like, vegetables everywhere. And they're all like really well seasoned. So I was just like, oh, these are actually really good. And now that I'm back in the US, I'm just like, I don't hate these veggies anymore. I'll eat them anyways.
Yeah, the key is definitely how you prepare them for
Yes.
sure. And like I no, I totally agree with you because I've always liked vegetables actually, which is pretty good. Some fruits I was kind of iffy on, but
Mm.
yeah, I agree. Like as I got older, I sort of discovered different ways of preparing them, which definitely helped and make them more delicious. Because my mom is very kind of just basic salt and pepper. Actually, my mom doesn't really even use salt, so just kind of pepper and and boiling things to within an inch of their lives.
Oh
And that's
no.
that's my yeah. My mom overcooks everything. Like she likes her steaks well done, well done.
Burnt to a crisp.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh,
I've learned to appreciate the medium, not medium rare, like rare medium rare, but like the medium almost well done steak
yeah, yeah.
because
I do
like
mine about
it's
medium.
really tender. It's very tender.
Yes,
So
yes.
good.
And I know. Yeah, I used to have to like sit there and literally saw my steaks to try to cut it. And like I didn't like steak for a long time because I thought that that's what steak was, and then nope. And
The
same thing with
slab of meat that you
vegetables.
had to like.
Yeah. And my mom, oh God, potatoes. I used to not like potatoes. Potatoes are wonderful vegetable.
Yeah,
They're amazing prepared in so many different ways. But just
it's a
like
very versatile veggie.
yeah, but she would just like overboil them and then just boiled. No, yeah, like no seasoning, no
Oh
salt
my
and
god.
pepper. There's no like crisp on it. It was just like mush. But it wasn't mashed. It was just mush. Oh God. Anyway,
I'm
sorry,
so happy
mom.
I grew up with my dad.
Yeah.
Like best thing about my dad is that he is a master chef in the kitchen. He's like
Mm,
honestly, he hasn't had any formal training, but like just like watches cooking shows and then goes, "Okay, I see what you're doing there. I don't have all that, so I'm just going to do this instead." And like
mm,
like produces something that's just amazing and fantastic. And
awesome.
like there are times he'll walk into the kitchen, we call it Kevin surprise. Because he'll walk into the kitchen with no plan,
Uh-huh.
open up all the cupboards, open up the fridge, stare at the fridge, open up the freezer, look what's in the freezer, and go, hmm. And then he'll just grab a bunch of miscellaneous crap,
Hmm.
throw it into a pot, and bake it, and then it'll come out, and you're just like, I don't know what you did, and it's
Hmm.
very questionable what's in here, but it smells amazing and it tastes really good.
Oh, good.
So
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
definitely
and
definitely
then
props to families that can make casseroles like that, where you can just like be like, yep, it's the kitchen sink casserole, enjoy.
and I guess like having your own garden and growing multitude of vegetables and stuff really sort of
Hmm.
encourages that kind of creativity and like flavor
Yeah.
and stuff. That's really
Well, and it
great.
was really nice too because like if you're like, oh hey, I'm gonna have a salad for lunch today, and you're like, there's no, you don't have to go to the fridge and be like, oh man, I guess I have to go to the store. No, no,
Mm.
you just go, oh, there's no lettuce in the fridge because nobody picked any more lettuce. I'm just
Mm.
gonna go out to my back garden, and you open the back
Yeah.
door, you take 4 steps, you clip yourself some lettuce, you bring it inside, give it a little wash, and then use whatever it is that you're going to use, and whatever you don't, you put in a Ziploc with like a wet napkin around it to help
Mm.
keep it moist because lettuce wilts if it's dry,
Right.
and then it becomes like weirdly slimy and it's gross.
Yee.
And then put it in the fridge, and it'll last for like 2 or 3 weeks before it becomes even kind of wilted.
Nice.
Yeah, no, so
It's a
I
power
I
of
loved
freshness.
I loved having the convenience and the freshness of the vegetables. Just being like, hey, we want to do something with eggplant tonight. Can you go grab some from the garden? You're like, you got it.
It's so
So
good.
like it's such a benefit because it like cuts down on how much gas you're using because you're not driving to the store 2 or 3 times
Mm.
a day, or like 4 times, 3 or 4 times a week to like go grocery shopping to buy all the vegetables and things you want, or like, oh,
Mhm.
I forgot the onion. Like your
Mm.
onions in your backyard, you go get it.
Well, I think that's all we have time for today. I
Hmm.
hope this episode was useful and inspiring. Maybe some of you will want to plant gardens of your own next spring.
And if you don't have a yard, there's also indoor planting options. You might be lucky enough to live close to a community garden as well. All great options.
Mm. And my sister even bought into this program, like a farm share or something.
Hmm.
She explained it to me, and I immediately forgot. But she receives a portion of the harvest for a flat annual rate. So I think she pays like
Right.
$600 or something a year. But she's gotten excellent value out of it so far, and the vegetables are grown right outside her city and are delivered fresh to her door.
Yeah, and I'm sure that $600 rate is helping pay for the seeds, storage,
Mm.
the workers to go harvest the vegetables, transportation of the vegetables, the water for the vegetables. Because as much as we all like to think that water's cheap, it ain't.
It ain't. Yeah, no, she and vegetables and stuff like where she lives,
Hmm.
really expensive too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, no, she's
Well,
gotten really good value from it.
yeah. So if you like this episode, please like, comment, follow, or subscribe to this podcast. It really helps us grow and reach out to new listeners.
So you can also read more about Mo's garden and get some more gardening tips by reading this episode's accompanying blog post written by Mo. You
Yay!
can find the link to the post in the description.
Also, check out our Patreon account for some behind the scenes footage of this recording and other extra content.
So thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget to join us next month for our super special episode. We can't wait to share
Ooh,
it with you.
what's it going to be about? Who knows? Do you
Who
know? I don't
knows?
know.
But it's going
See
to
you
be good.
again.
Okay, bye.
That's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in.
And as always, please support this work by subscribing and donating to our cause at www.teamgetoveryit.com.
Donors get access to specific content like stickers, t-shirts, and postcards from our journey.
You can donate for as little as $5 and the benefits build from there.
Go to our website for more info, or find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Team Get Ovary It.
Thanks for listening, and catch us next time on Get Ovary It. So, 3, 2, 1.
Carrots and eating them without permission. Let me try that line again, though. Permission. I can't.
Depending on where you live, the cost of veggies at a supermarket.
What?
Supermarket.
Yeah. Also, so breaking. Oh my God, wait. Shit, I was supposed to look it up how to pronounce that.
Okay. I'm struggling too. I'm just struggling to read.
We're all struggling today.
I don't know what's up with my accents.
Backyard.
My backyard.
My backyard where my car keys are. Yeah.
I don't know where my voice was, so I'm super my voice went that direction, so I just rolled with it.
It happens to all of us.